Hello and welcome to part 0 of my Ever After High retelling series. Today we will be covering the world building and the backstory leading up to Ever After High. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Ainsley from Fairy Tale Vibes. I am the creator of the Ever After High swept at birth theory, so you may know me from that. I also more recently created a full video documenting all of Cupid's backstory between her time at Monster High and Ever After High, so if you haven't seen that yet, I would definitely check that out after this video. But let's get into this. If you are wondering what my Ever After High retelling series is, the purpose of the retelling series is to compile all the information from the Ever After High show and the books into one timeline, and to also use this retelling to kind of clarify any gaps in between the books and the show, and also build on plot points that weren't fully fleshed out between the books and the show. Also with the retelling, I do plan on finishing Ever After High, because if you don't know, Ever After High was left unfinished by Mattel. Also, the crossover movie was left unfinished by Mattel. So with this retelling series, I will be using the information we have to predict how I think Ever After High was supposed to end. So the reason we are starting the retelling series with this episode 0 that is going to cover the world building and the backstory of Ever After High is because in the original series, the world building and the backstory behind some of the characters at Ever After High is often unclear. So I thought that when going into a retelling series, it would just be easier to clarify the world building up front so that we don't run into problems and questions about the lore later in the retelling series, so that we can focus on the main plot points for the rest of the retelling series. So in this episode, we are going to be covering 3 major things. The first thing we are going to be covering is the actual backstory of the Evil Queen leading up to the start of Ever After High. The second thing we are going to be covering is the Ever After High / Monster High universe, what it is, and just some basic connections between them. And then the third thing we are going to be covering is kind of just like the backstory of Ever After High, like the school itself, and also the Grimm Brothers, and also like the Storybook of Legends, just like all that is kind of connected. So basically there's 3 main parts to this video. The last part is definitely going to be the longest, so stick around for that if you want to know where the Grimm Brothers came from, what the Storybook of Legends actually is, and why they even made Ever After High to begin with. So to start off with, let's discuss the backstory of the Evil Queen. Also, Mira Shards is going to be our little guest star for this section of the video. If you don't know, Mira Shards is actually the Evil Queen in disguise. To begin, we will discuss the Evil Queen's time at Ever After High. I need you guys to understand that contrary to what many people might believe, the Evil Queen is actually pretty similar to Raven, at least upon entering Ever After High. Because see, the Evil Queen actually originally did not want to follow the destiny of becoming the next Evil Queen. The main difference between the Evil Queen and Raven is that Raven straight up refused to sign the Storybook of Legends and promised that she would never be evil. Meanwhile, the Evil Queen in her time at Ever After High, for whatever reason, I think she really did believe that she had to sign the Storybook of Legends or she would go poof. So she just stuck it up and she signed the Storybook of Legends, but then she vowed to become even more evil as kind of her form of revenge. I kind of see it as her challenging Milton Grimm, being like, hey, Milton Grimm, you want me to be evil? I will show you evil. And I think that this is also what spurred the Evil Queen's rivalry with Snow White, because I think the Evil Queen knew that once they graduated, Snow White would be the ultimate winner of their story. So the only way that the Evil Queen could win against Snow White was by competing against her in the Dragon Games and winning against Snow White in the Dragon Games. And that is why they became, you know, like the main rival captains during the original Dragon Games during their time at Ever After High. The other thing that the Evil Queen did during her time at Ever After High was to hide the Storybook of Legends. Now, of course, we know that this happened because we see it in Throne Coming. But the question that is never answered in Throne Coming is, why did the Evil Queen take it upon herself to steal the Storybook of Legends and hide it beneath the floorboards of her dorm room? I think it was because she knew that she had no choice during her time at Ever After High but to sign the Storybook of Legends, but she didn't want her future daughter to have the same fate, and I do think that is why she hid it. I think it's also possible that she hid it to kind of get revenge on Milton Grimm, because as we see later in her life, which I'll discuss in a second, she kind of just went on to go beyond her story and just spread as much evil as she possibly could. So I could also believe that by hiding the Storybook of Legends, she was also just doing that to cause chaos. Although I do think it could also have been in an attempt to prevent her future daughter from following the same destiny. Also, if you do believe the swapped at birth theory, it could have been because she wanted to swap her future daughter at birth to give her future daughter a better destiny, and she didn't want there to be any evidence of what the daughter's original destiny was supposed to be. So that's also could have been a reason why she hid it. But moving on to when the Evil Queen has graduated, she did go on to fulfill her fairy tale destiny of poisoning Snow White. But remember how I told you guys that the Evil Queen's way of rebelling was just spreading even more evil? So basically, after poisoning Snow White, she went on to spread evil to all the other fairy tale stories, even though she was not a part of those fairy tale stories. And then she actually went on to poison/curse all of Wonderland. And this is when the brothers Grimm and Baba Yaga had enough, because this is when Milton Grimm, Giles Grimm, and Baba Yaga trapped the Evil Queen in the mirror prison to prevent the Evil Queen from completing her curse, and I mean totally killing everyone in Wonderland. And then they also kind of closed down any portals between Wonderland and the rest of Ever After to prevent the curse from like spreading over the border through the portals as well. When the Evil Queen's Curse of Wonderland happened, we also do know that the Mad Hatter, Maddie, Lizzie, and Kitty were able to escape before the portals to the border closed. And I am guessing because of how old like Maddie, Lizzie, and Kitty looked in the flashback scene when we see them escaping to Ever After, I think maybe they were around 12. So we could say that the Evil Queen got trapped in Mirror Prison around that time that Raven was 12. But also we find out from the books that everybody else but Raven initially thinks that the Evil Queen was dead. So we could also say that at this time, the rest of the magical world probably thought that the Grimm brothers had actually killed the Evil Queen. Now, the question remains whether they trapped the Evil Queen in Mirror Prison for like ethical reasons because they actually didn't want to kill her, or whether they actually just trapped her in the Mirror Prison because they couldn't kill her because she was too powerful for them. So once the Evil Queen is in Mirror Prison, Raven is only allowed to, visit her mother's Mirror Prison window on like designated days. We do see this happen. Like there is a mirror where she can see her mom in Ever After High. Like in the school, there is that room with the mirror that she goes to see her mom on visitation day. But we also do know from the books that there is a mirror in Raven's mom's side of her castle that Raven goes and sees sometimes when she is at home. Also, initially when the Evil Queen was placed in Mirror Prison, it was more like an actual prison, like she was in a prison uniform and she was just in a dark void. She didn't have all those mirrors where she could spy on everybody, but throughout the Ever After High school year, she slowly started gaining power back. That is why by the time we get to Dragon Games, she is actually able to make an apple levitate outside Mirror Prison. If the Mirror Prison was working properly, she wouldn't have been able to do that. But I think I figured out the timing in which the Evil Queen actually started gaining some of her power back. And I actually realized this through 13 Wishes. So in Monster High's 13 Wishes, there is this attic and it has a bunch of fairy tale relics in it. Like to me it seems like somebody somehow maybe smuggled these fairy tale relics from the world of Ever After High to the world of Monster High. But anyway, in the attic in 13 Wishes, we see a Mad Hatter's hat, the apple from Snow White, and also the Evil Queen's mirror. And also we do know Gigi's lamp is in this attic, which if you've seen my theory on TikTok about Gigi being from Ever After High, I do think Gigi was originally from Ever After High as well. I may also make a video about Ever After High and Monster High connections here on YouTube if you guys want that, so let me know. But the point in saying this is that in 13 Wishes, when the ghouls are in the attic, we see Howleen accidentally bump into this Evil Queen mirror. And we do know that there are certain mirrors that are directly linked to the Evil Queen's Mirror Prison. Again, we know that one of these mirrors is the mirror that we see in Ever After High in the visitation room. We do know there's one of these mirrors in the Evil Queen's castle. We know that from the books. And I want to propose that I think this mirror in the Monster High attic is a third like direct pathway to the Evil Queen's Mirror Prison. And I think when Howleen bumps this mirror and like cracks it, I think this is when the Evil Queen started getting her power back and her magic back, that eventually when we get to my other parts of the retelling, we'll talk about how the Evil Queen's power slowly starts building up throughout the series. But I just want to mention this in kind of like the backstory because 13 Wishes literally takes place like on like the first day of school or like the first week of school. So this takes place like saying that like Monster High and Ever After High school year start at the same time. This roughly takes place like right at the beginning of the year. So I just want to mention that here, that this is when the evil queen actually started to gain some of her power back. But speaking of the fact that Ever After High and Monster High are in the same universe, let's get on to the second part of this video, which is discussing kind of like just like what the world is that Ever After High and Monster High exist in. And for this part of the video, our special guest is going to be Brooke Page. Now, I know this is not really Brooke Page. This is actually Scarlet Rose from MGA's Shadow High. No, not like the Legend of Shadow High. This is a different thing. But like, guys, you gotta tell me that this doll also has a hood. It doesn't actually fully cover her head, but you guys gotta tell me that this is not how you imagine Brooke Page. Like, this doll is Brooke Page to me, so she is sticking around for this section of the video. So both Ever After High and Monster High actually exist in the world of stories, in that they both exist behind the fourth wall. Ever After High specifically exists in the realm of fairy tales, and in Ever After High, you know, Wonderland and Neverland are also mentioned, so you could kind of see like Wonderland and Neverland as kind of sub-realms of the main fairy tale realm, and then Monster High exists in another realm, which is kind of the realm of scary stories or campfire stories. But if you think about it, similar to Ever After High, where everybody's sons and daughters are fairy tale characters, Monster High is like descendants and sons of daughters of people from like, you know, like scary stories like Dracula or Frankenstein. And then another realm that we know of is the realm of the myths. This is like where Cupid is from. This is probably also where Deuce is from. In the book, The Legend of Shadow High, it is established that there are many realms of stories behind the fourth wall, not just those three, but we will further discuss The Legend of Shadow High once we get to the crossover part of the retelling, so stay tuned for that episode. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't want you guys to just think I was making up this lore about the realm of stories for like no reason. Another thing about the realm of stories is we do know that it's possible for people to teleport between them. We know that Cupid is able to do this, and I talk about this in my Cupid video. Not that Cupid does it herself, but that her dad Eros is able to transport her from Monster High to the realm of the myths to Ever After High. We also do know that the realm of the myths and the realm that Monster High is in have a closer connection because there's multiple people from the realm of the myths who do attend Monster High, such as Deuce, Viperine, and Manny, with Deuce being the son of Medusa, and then Viperine being his cousin, and then Manny being the son of the Minotaur. The thing I want to note about those three is that they are monsters. They are just from myths. So I do think there is a good possibility that in the realm of the myths, there's actually another school specifically for demigods, but people who are born as monsters into the realm of myths are able to go to Monster High since that is a more fit school for them. I do also think, again, I mentioned this in the Cupid video, that the reason Cupid was sent to Monster High instead of just going to high school in the realm of the myths is because she's adopted and she's actually a bone elemental, so she fit in better there. And then once her father Eros figured out that people at Ever After High need some help, you know, figuring out whether or not they want to follow their destinies and whether or not they want to follow their true hearts, he decided to send Cupid there because he thought that would be a good task for her to do as a Cupid. Now, I know you guys are going to say, well, if Ever After High and Monster High exist in the same universe, why are the students at Ever After High forced to follow the same destiny as their parents, while the students at Monster High are not? Well, that all comes back to the Grimm Brothers, which brings us to the third and final part of the video, which is discussing the history of the Grimm Brothers and of Ever After High in the Ever After High universe, not the literal history of the Grimm Brothers. So I believe that in Ever After High, Milton Grimm and Giles Grimm are actually supposed to represent the original Grimm Brothers who wrote, you know, the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. And the reason that they have come to Ever After High is to enforce the students to keep following their version of the fairy tales so that they can remain famous and recognized in, you know, real life. Now, there are two ways they could have done this. Either they created a portal to the realm of the fairy tales, which they went through, and then created Ever After High to force the characters to keep repeating the same story. Or the Grimm Brothers created essentially OCs of themselves and inserted these original characters inspired by themselves into their stories, essentially creating a clone of themselves in the fairy tale realm that would continue to propagate their stories. Now, how do we know this? Well, Ever After High tells us that Milton Grimm founded Ever After High in 1812. Guess what was published in 1812? This. So that would mean essentially upon creating this book, Milton Grimm created Ever After High, the high school, to force students to continue following these destinies that he wrote. We also know that before Milton Grimm founded Ever After High, he was said to have traveled around. Now, in real life, what the Brothers Grimm actually did to create this book is they traveled around Europe and collected various folk tales / fairy tales, and then kind of wrote these fairy tales down into their perfect version, those fairy tales, for, their collection of fairy tales. Now, what I think is interesting about this is prior to the Grimm brothers actually writing down their versions of the fairy tales were constantly changing and adapting with each generation because they are passed down, verbally by mouth. But by enshrining them into writing, it made it so that these fairy tales were the same every time, and for every generation, they remain the same. So you could say that in Ever After High, Milton Grimm, creating Ever After High to force the characters to follow his specific version of their fairy tales is kind of mirroring the actual creation of this book in the real world. But anyway, regardless, I do believe the fairy tale realm did exist within this world of stories prior to Milton Grimm and also Giles Grimm entering it. I just believe that before Ever After High was founded, the characters could kind of do whatever they wanted, and the stories were constantly changing between generations, where once the Brothers Grimm arrived, they kind of just enforced this as the law that everybody had to live by. And I know you guys are also going to say, well, there's other characters, such as the characters from Wonderland who aren't in the Brothers Grimm. Why would, Milton Grimm force them to follow their specific destiny? And I think the thing is, he basically has to enforce everybody to follow their destiny so that he can enforce his characters to follow their destiny as well. But you will also notice Milton Grimm seems to care more about his characters than some of the other characters. For example, he is obsessed with making sure Raven Queen follows her destiny because he believes if she does not follow her destiny, it will ruin the entire Snow White story. And honestly, the way that Milton Grimm favors Apple White, I believe that probably his favorite fairy tale story is Snow White. But here's the thing. Milton Grimm is way less concerned about Wonderland being cursed. After Wonderland was cursed, he kind of just put that on the shelf. He kind of just said, you know what, we blocked off the border, everything's a-okay. But here's the fact. Without Wonderland, how is Maddie supposed to follow her destiny? And here's the other thing. With the border closed off, Alistair and Bunny are still stuck in Wonderland. Alistair is the son of Snow White. Alistair is the son of Alice. He is the main character of Alice in Wonderland. How are you going to recreate Alice in Wonderland if the main character is stuck in Wonderland? And all the other characters, Lizzie, Maddie, and Kitty are stuck in Ever After. That is not going to work. And, if Milton Grimm was actually really concerned about preserving all the stories, he would, figure out a solution. He would, contact Raven and be like, hey, I know you got your mother's magic. Let's try to undo this curse. He'd be obsessed with that. But no, he seems to only be obsessed with Snow White's story because Snow White's story is a story that, he wrote down. I'm not going to say he created it because, again, the Grimm brothers collected these stories and, I guess they kind of wrote down their version of what they believe the correct version to be in here, and then he wants to continue to enforce it. But moving on, another thing, how did Milton Grimm present Ever After High when he created in the fairy tale realm? I'm guessing that when he created Ever After High and, he presented these correct versions of the fairy tales and, told everybody to follow them, I'm guessing he presented it as a certain way of preserving, balance in the fairy tale realm. And I do believe Milton Grimm kind of partially believes the idea that there is a correct way to tell a story, because in the flashback in Throne Coming, we see Milton Grimm kind of learn through this flashback. Basically, in the flashback in Throne Coming, Milton Grimm and Giles Grimm are kind of playing outside, and then Milton Grimm and Giles Grimm go into this cave, and Giles Grimm is like, I don't want to go in the cave. Dad says there's an ogre. And then Milton Grimm's like, haha, I don't care. That's just a story. But then Milton Grimm basically ends up getting really scared and he leaves Giles in the cave. But the thing is, in the end, Giles is fine. But the takeaway that Milton has from that is, oh, I should actually listen to stories, because if you don't listen to the exact version of the story, if you don't do the correct thing, if you don't believe that there's an ogre in a cave, you're going to die. Even though Giles literally didn't die. And also, again, Giles is the one who's much more lenient with characters following their destiny. So clearly, I don't think there was actually an ogre in that cave. And I also do believe the flashback in Throne Coming was a flashback from the real world, if it really did happen, or if Milton Grimm and Giles Grimm are actually just OCs created by the original Grimm brothers to insert themselves into the fairy tale realm. There is a possibility that it could be a manufactured destiny to make Milton Grimm believe that he does have to make sure the characters follow the same destiny. And I also want to say, I did not come up with the idea of the manufactured memory. That idea was actually, Athena XOX from Tumblr. She commented that on my TikTok. So good for her. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make with that, I think, is that when Milton Grimm originally created Ever After High, he kind of pitched it as the idea of, okay, balance, we're going to balance good and evil. These are the correct versions of the story so that, in most of the Grimm stories, like, the hero ends up winning, sometimes not. But I think the idea that Milton Grimm probably proposed to the people in the fairy tale realm is that these are my versions of the stories. They're the correct versions. They will help you guys keep balance and keep everything even. And I think that's how he originally pitched it. Then I think Milton Grimm and probably also Giles Grimm created the Storybook of Legends by having the original fairy tale characters, so like the original Snow White from like 200 years ago, vow a piece of like kind of themselves and their future destiny, and he put these pieces of each of the characters and themselves and their future destinies into the Storybook of Legends. And also upon giving this piece of themselves, they kind of vowed to give a piece of all of their future ancestors so that their ancestors could continue repeating these destinies. And the reason I think that there's like a piece of each person's, like almost like kind of like their soul and their destiny in the Storybook of Legends, is because when the original Storybook of Legends is kind of dissolved at the end of Way to Wonderland, we kind of see the pages fly out and they kind of get reabsorbed into the characters. And I think that's because there was a piece of themselves and their destiny and their soul kind of missing. And I think that is how Milton Grimm and Giles Grimm probably created the original Storybook of Legends. They created it with the first kind of class, the original fairy tale characters at Ever After High. And I think the reason why when the Storybook of Legends is of course stolen by the Evil Queen, the reason that the Grimm brothers can't just make a new one is because they could kind of only do that sort of magic once. And also it could also be because Giles Grimm is of course at that point in time trapped in the basement, and maybe they needed both brothers to create the Storybook of Legends. I don't know, but my guess is probably that's a type of magic that can only really be done once. You can really only take that piece of somebody's soul out once and create a book, and then once it's kind of missing, it's kind of missing. But yeah, that's how I think the Storybook of Legends was created. Do I think it really binds the characters to like force them to follow that destiny? I am not sure. I think it definitely leads them towards that destiny. As we can see, when Raven signed the Storybook of Legends, she did gain a lot more power, and I think that was kind of the piece of the soul that was missing, was that power. And then when she signs it, she is actually able to gain that power back. Or if somebody steals that destiny, if they sign it, they would gain that power too, and because they would take that part of the destiny, I guess. But if somebody didn't sign it, would anything bad happen to them? I don't really think so. I think Milton Grimm honestly kind of made that up. And speaking of making things up, although I do think, again, Milton Grimm originally pitched Ever After High as sort of like a balance. Like, we're going to keep repeating the same destinies to keep balance in the fairy tale world. Eventually, he started pitching it as, if you don't follow your destiny, you will go poof. And I do think that is a lie. And I do think at some point, Giles Grimm started realizing that what him and Milton were doing was selfish and was wrong and was only to, kind of support the success of the Grimm Brothers stories in the real world. And I think Giles Grimm realized that this was not okay, or maybe he never really agreed with Milton, but he kind of just went along with it. And I talked about this in the Gigi theory that I made on TikTok, where I hypothesized Gigi Grant from Monster High's 13 Wishes is originally from Ever After High. In there, I talk about the fact that I think Giles Grimm was slowly rebelling against Milton Grimm. And again, one of the things that Giles Grimm did was kind of start to help, fairy tale characters make their destinies easier. For example, he helps Gigi out by helping Wisp to be created. I mean, I know Wisp eventually turns evil, but Wisp was originally supposed to be a companion for Gigi. And I think we also see in other fairy tales, for example, like Gingerbread House. Her mom, the original Candy Witch, well, I guess her mom wasn't the original, but her mom was supposed to die, and her mom did create a loophole where her mom kind of created a door in the back of the oven so that when Hansel and Gretel lock her in the oven, she could escape. Maybe Giles Grimm gave her the idea for that so that she wouldn't die. But I do think Milton Grimm got fed up with this, and I think it also at some point Milton Grimm realized that Giles kind of just felt bad and wanted to tell the students that they wouldn't go poof if they didn't sign the Storybook of Legends, and I think he really disagreed with Milton on that, and I think Giles Grimm thought that wasn't fair, and at that point Milton Grimm kind of went behind Giles Grimm's back to curse him to speak Riddlish, and then, kind of locked him in the basement. Another thing that I want to point out about Milton Grimm, kind of lying to the students and telling them that they will go poof if they don't sign the Storybook of Legends, I think Milton Grimm, again, is obsessed with these characters continuing to follow the same destiny, so much so that I think he purposely blocked off the realm of fairy tales from the rest of the story world, because again, for example, like I said earlier, Monster High and the Realm of the Mists have a lot more connection, but Monster High and Ever After High do not know each other exists. And I think Milton Grimm did this purposefully, because if the people of Ever After, if the people of the fairy tale realm found out that they didn't have to follow their destiny, they would rebel against him and he would lose his power. If they saw Monster High and saw that the people at Monster High were not repeating the same destinies as their parents, they would realize that they could do the same thing, and Milton Grimm would not stand for that. Do I think that if Ever After High was actually properly finished, Milton Grimm would have been confronted about this? Possibly, yes. So we will get to that later in my retelling series, so make sure to stick around. One more thing that I kind of want to say about Milton Grimm blocking off the realm of fairy tales from the rest of the story realms is that, again, we do know Cupid's dad, Eros, is aware of the realm of the fairy tales because he knew that it needed help and he sent Cupid there. But also, I think it's very interesting because Eros tells Cupid that her mission is, to help people follow their true heart's desire, help them figure out if they're royal or rebel, help them figure out what they actually want to do with their life. But when she arrives, Milton Grimm thinks that Cupid is there to make sure people follow their story destiny and help them realize that their true heart's desire is to follow their destiny. And here's my thinking. I think Eros lied to Milton Grimm. First of all, I do think Milton Grimm knows that Monster High exists. I think he's lying about that, and I think he knows the Realm of the Mists exists, and I think he was in contact with Eros when Cupid transferred there, and I think Milton Grimm probably also received, maybe Cupid's transcripts from Monster High. So I think he knows those realms exist. I think I think Eros purposely lied to Milton Grimm and told Milton Grimm that, oh yeah, Cupid will come there and make sure everybody follows their destiny. And I think Eros did that because I think Eros feels bad for the people of the fairy tale realm that they're forced to continue following these same destinies. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to lie to Milton Grimm. I'm going to send my daughter there, and Milton Grimm's going to think that she's going to help him, and then she's actually going to be against him and, defeat him. Another thing that I want to mention in terms of the backstory of Ever After High before I end this video, and this is relating to the Grimm brothers still, so we're still in that section of the video, is Giles Grimm's curse to only speak Riddlish, because we know in Thronecoming, the curse is cured when the girls go into that giant Storybook of Legends in Heritage Hall and go into the different destinies and grab, the little papers with each of their destiny on them, and then when they put them together, it is the spell that, frees Giles Grimm from his Riddlish curse. I do believe somehow Milton Grimm put those papers there. I think Milton Grimm probably created that giant Storybook of Legends as kind of a labyrinth to hide these, pieces of the curse, or I guess the cure to the curse in, so that Giles Grimm wouldn't be able to be freed from it, nobody would be able to find it, but clearly people found it, and I don't know if Milton Grimm planned, for maybe at some time somebody to find it. I don't know if there was a greater plan with that, but I just do want to mention, I think, Milton Grimm was the one who put the pieces to cure Giles Grimm's curse in that giant Storybook of Legends. But yes, thank you for getting this far in the video. If you got this far in the video, please comment a purple heart emoji down below. Also, if you want to support the channel, comment, subscribe, and make sure to especially subscribe if you want to see the rest of the retelling parts, because again, I don't know how many episodes there's going to be. I need to figure out how I'm going to divide it up, but I definitely know that next episode will sort of be the first chapter. In the next episode of the retelling, we're going to discuss, the start of the school year, basically upon when Raven and Apple enter to Ever After High. We will discuss Legacy Day, things like that. I don't know how many episodes will be after that, but all I know is the retelling series will end with me figuring out what the finale of Ever After High was supposed to be. Was there going to be some sort of confrontation with Milton Grimm about how he's the true villain? Maybe. We will see. I actually have not written that part of the retelling yet, so we will see when we get there. But yeah, also, if you guys don't know, I have an Etsy. I will be dropping some really cute things soon. Like, this is one of the outfits that I will be dropping on my Etsy soon. It's a really cute, you know, Ever After High, Monster High sized outfit. So if you want to see the various doll outfits I have on my Etsy, check the link to my Etsy out down below. All my other socials will be linked below. My Discord will be linked below as well. I also forgot to say, if you are interested in joining the Storybook Society, which is the Ever After High fan club, there will be links for that below. You can follow us on social media. And also, there is a Storybook Society section in my Discord. So make sure to check those things out. And again, thank you guys for always being there and supporting me. You guys are so sweet. And if you want something else to watch after this, again, I recently posted my Monster High Ever After High Parallels theory. I recently posted my complete Ever After High guidebook. I recently posted my complete recap of literally Cupid's entire story arc. So check those things out. Bye guys, I love you. Ashlyn, my little model Ashlyn says bye. Bye guys.